Welcome back, everybody. I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist. In today's video, we're going to be discussing a new article about Kyle Pitts. In the article, it states that he's going to play some tight end and some wide receiver. We're going to discuss why this is and isn't news, along with the dynasty and redraft implications behind this news. Please remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into the video. In an article written by Zach Alper of Pro Football Talk, Zach Robinson, Kyle Pitts learning some tight end, some wide receiver. So we already know that he's a versatile weapon. He's been playing X and slot, as well as inline tight end during his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons since 2021. But let's read into the article and see what it provides. It states, one way that the Falcons can improve their chances of success in 2024 is by finding more ways to get Kyle Pitts going on offense. So we already know that he's a star tight end. He's presumably the number 2 target on the team, which is fantastic for a tight end. It's rather rare for a tight end to be the number 1 player on their team, so you will absolutely take being the number 2. It goes on to further state, Pitts had 1,026 receiving yards as a rookie in 2021, but he's only added 1,023 yards in 27 games over the last 2 seasons. A knee injury in 2022 and lingering issues upon his return to action contributed to that drop-off. So, a healthy season is one reason to think that the Falcons can get more out of Pitts. Yes. So we know that he had an MCL tear. Remember, this hampers your side-to-side movement. Guess what's important in being able to get open when running routes? Side-to-side movement. He's going to be 2 full years past this injury. He's going to be so much more healthy and so much more agile, especially in his side-to-side movements. The article continues, another reason to believe that higher production is ahead is that the Falcons' offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, is planning to find ways to use Pitts at multiple positions over the course of games. Once again, this is a new coaching staff. So what they are going to do is continue some of the good things that Arthur Smith was doing. Now, the things they're not going to be doing is featuring Kadarrell Hodge, Jonnu Smith. They're actually going to use their playmakers. This is why it is and isn't different. It's not different in the way that they're going to utilize him in the sense of positional versatility, but it is different in that it's a much better scheme, and they're going to use them to their strengths. They're not going to be featuring 4-string wide receivers and backup tight ends this year. It continues to quote him by saying, he's learning basically 2 different positions. There's some tight end and there's some receiver, so he's got a lot on his plate. He's handled it really well. I'm just excited to see him continue to get more comfortable in the system. We'll move him around the formation. We'll use him as a blocker. We'll use him as a receiver. We'll use him across the board. Things aren't going to change in that he's going to be utilized all over the formation. It's just that the difference is they have a much better scheme. They're going to run better route combinations, and they're going to have much improved quarterback play that's going to allow them to actually run a realistic offense this year instead of whatever Arthur Smith was trying to do the past couple of years. When we look at Kyle Pitts' profile, he's 6'6", 245 pounds. He was drafted 4th overall in 2021. He was a legendary tight end prospect. And while, yes, we have seen some failures with tight ends, it's definitely not because he isn't a good athlete. When we look at his metrics, he ran a 4.49, which they added 0.5 of a second to his time. It was really a 4.44. And this was at the combine, by the way. So it's important to remember that. But that's still 99th percentile among tight ends. And this guy isn't short. He's 6'6". That's a 123.1 speed score, which is also in the 99th percentile. When we look at his burst score, it's also incredible, with a 123.1 score, which is in the 78th percentile among tight ends. His agility score of 11.47 is in the 66th percentile, which is also rather good considering how tall he is. It's incredibly hard to be agile when you're that tall and lanky. Then when we look at his catch radius, it's in the 85th percentile with a 10.2 score. That's his ability to cover ground and as well as his wingspan and just generally how large of a target he is in the open field. He is absolutely incredible. He has vice grip hands. Seriously, there's a video on YouTube where it shows every route and catch in which he had this past year. Look at how awful those targets were, and look at some of the tough grabs in which he was able to corral. Looking at his stats this past year under Arthur Smith, it was just a complete disaster. He finished 11th in targets among the tight end position with 89. That's an average of 5.2 per game. Definitely not enough. He was not used enough. I mean, they were featuring backup tight end Jonnu Smith, Kadarrell Hodge, Mac Hollins. It made no sense. And his target share of 17.8% was also 13th among the tight end position. Definitely not high enough. Looking at his stats, he finished as the tight end 11 in fantasy points per game in his rookie year. Then the past 2 years, he's had significant decline, which is a lot of it is due to the fact that he went from an aging Matt Ryan to Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder before sustaining an injury in 2022, that MCL injury. Then this past year, he was still recovering while also catching passes from Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. And remember, all of this was under Arthur Smith. It was a complete train wreck. People think that this guy isn't good. They have no idea what they're talking about. Look at his film. Don't look at some baseline stats that just say, oh, he had 20 catches for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's really important to actually look deeper into things instead of just looking at a summary of a couple stats to ascertain whether somebody's good. The situation was as poor as you could possibly imagine. Terrible coaching, terrible quarterback play, poor scheme, coming off an injury. Everything was working against him in every conceivable way. Then we see the departure of Arthur Smith, which brought a great big smile to my face, and they hired Raheem Morris. He is a defensive-minded head coach, so you would prefer an offensive head coach just for more long-term consistency, but please, I'll take him a million times over Arthur Smith. But more importantly, let's look at the offensive coordinator hire. They hired Zach Robinson, former pass game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. That's right. We have the Sean McVay scheme coming into town, coming from someone that worked for Sean McVay. Think about it. Do the Rams get the most out of Puka Nacua in his rookie year? I think so. Have they gotten the most out of Cooper Kupp? I think so. They also just really haven't had a good tight end before, at least in the Rams offense. So there is a little bit of uncertainty here, but think about it. Were they able to get their playmakers the ball in space and use them to their strengths? Absolutely. Was Arthur Smith able to do that? Well, how has Drake London done? Kyle Pitts. Heralded prospect Bijan Robinson. They were all helpless. This guy had no idea what he was doing. He was trying to play chess when he was really playing checkers. That era is over, and usher in the Rams scheme. Alright, so, as I was mentioning, it's the Rams scheme. Well, let's look at 2023 in terms of most passing per team. The Rams finished 14th, with a total of 583 attempts. The Falcons, however, finished 25th, with only 530 attempts. That is a massive difference. Some of that is that the Rams had Stafford, and the Falcons were trying to figure out who was a better quarterback out of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. People who should be, at best, backups, preferably third stringers. That disparity doesn't seem that much in and of itself, but that is a massive target share difference for your top-end playmakers. Then when we look at the depth chart, they got 2 quarterback upgrades in Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. They retained Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. They still have Drake London. They brought in Darnell Mooney. He's not going to do too much. He's going to be the third option, most likely, maybe fourth option after Bijan in the passing game. Rondale Moore, he's never been able to stay healthy. He has a couple of good games here and there, but he's more of a high-volume player which he's not going to receive high volume in this offense, but he is going to be dangerous in that he is an elite athlete, and the Rams will use him to the best of his abilities. But more importantly, look at the tight end room. The second best tight end after Kyle Pitts is Charlie Warner. He is a straight-up blocking tight end. There is no one in this tight end room that is going to be any competition for Kyle Pitts. He is much, much better. He is going to be the number 2 target on this team. Think about how the Rams were this year when both Puka and Cooper Kupp were playing, also in games in which Matt Stafford was playing. They traded off games in which they would have massive blow-up games, and sometimes both of them would have blow-up games at the same time. This is what we're going to be able to expect this year for the Atlanta Falcons. So once again, is this news? Well, someone on Twitter says in 2023, Kyle Pitts played 565 snaps in the slot or out wide. That's 77.8% of his snaps at wide receiver. This isn't news. Well, once again, as I mentioned, this isn't news in the sense of we already knew he's a versatile weapon that can be used all over the field. I think everybody's aware that he is not your classic inline tight end. So congratulations, yes, this isn't news in that regard. This is news, once again, because this is a completely different coaching staff that comes from a successful organization and is going to bring that success from that organization to this organization. Zach Robinson knows exactly what he's doing. He used to work for PFF, by the way, so he is not one of these old school, blissfully unaware coaches that doesn't look at stats and doesn't understand what he needs to do to get the most out of his team. There's a reason he was working for the Rams. The Rams don't hire people that have no idea what they're doing for their coaching staff. There's a reason they're successful almost every single year. This is a completely different team that has a lot of the same playmakers, but also got 2 major quarterback upgrades. We should expect vastly, and I mean vastly, different results this year. Kyle Pitts is going to absolutely blow up. All these people that drafted in the past years that don't want anything to do with him and think that he sucks, don't look at any context. They didn't think, oh gosh, a major knee injury, that might affect his play. Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. Wow, those are some great quarterbacks. Maybe that could have affected his target accuracy. Arthur Smith, terrible head coach that has no idea what he's doing and doesn't use his personnel to the best of their abilities. Maybe that had something to do with it. If anything, just remember, context matters. We don't want to look at a summary of stats to ascertain whether someone's good. We want to look at their situation and what we can project for them in the future. You can project high-end, tight end 1 numbers from Kyle Pitts this year and in the future. He is going to win you fantasy championships in 2024 and beyond. Looking at his ADP in both Dynasty and Redraft, people understand some of what I've been talking about. He's going off in Dynasty as the tight end 5 at the 503. He's going behind the likes of Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, and Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers going over him is a mistake. When we look at the situation, look at their quarterbacks. Would you rather have AOC or Minshew, or Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix? I'd much rather have Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins throwing me the ball. Then when we look at their situations, they're both most likely to be the number 2 target. Devontae Adams is definitely going to get more targets than Brock Bowers, and I think it's fair to say Drake London is definitely going to get more targets than Kyle Pitts, so that's relatively even. But the offensive lines, the Falcons have one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL. The Raiders' offensive line is absolutely suspect. Then let's look at their schemes. Antonio Pierce runs an extremely run-heavy approach. And they also have another talented tight end in Michael Mayer. They're more likely to have 2 tight end sets going, which isn't going to hurt Brock Bowers, but Kyle Pitts is clearly defined as the best tight end on his team. Then when we look at the Falcons scheme, once again, it's going to be the Sean McVay scheme. I would much prefer the Rams' more balanced but slightly pass-heavy approach over the run-heavy Raiders approach. Really, I don't think that it's close at all. Then when we look at redraft, he's going off as the tight end 6. The only difference there is that Brock Bowers goes after Kyle Pitts in redraft, and then Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews go ahead of him. I think that's fair. You could reasonably project some of these tight ends to maybe have a better season. I think Pitts is a top 5 tight end this year, make no mistake. He has never, ever been in a situation like this. People forget how absolutely dominant he was in college. Look at his highlights against Alabama. This was back when Nick Saban was their head coach, and they had God Squad teams. He absolutely roasted them. And people also seem to forget he's the second rookie tight end in NFL history to have 1,000 receiving yards. This guy is extremely talented, and in a situation in which he received 2 quarterback upgrades, a scheme upgrade, a coaching upgrade, and he still remains the number 2 target on his team. That is just about as good as you could possibly ask for a tight end. Draft him with confidence, and he will have a top 5 tight end season that could be closer to a top 3 season, and he will absolutely win you fantasy championships in both 2024 and beyond. So, what do you think? Do you think Kyle Pitts is set to rebound? Do you think he's still going to struggle? Let me know in the comment section, and let me know why. For what it's worth, I think he's going to be dominant. And with that, I'm the Fantasy Football Strategist. Please remember that I am building a library of information with which you can use to dominate both your redraft and dynasty leagues in 2024 and beyond. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a good day.